With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halverson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning here on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later this Friday, we have this week's Almond Update. We'll have that coming up later on in the show, but we start out today with a preview of the Ag Gateway Annual Conference that will be starting November 11th in Austin. Here's Chuck Zimmerman.
I talked with Brent Kemp, President and CEO, about what Ag Gateway works to accomplish and what the schedule looks like. I'll be there to take photos and collect some good interviews and session audio. I'll be going straight from there then to Kansas City for a day of the NAFB convention before heading back to Zimcom World headquarters. Brent, let's get started talking about the Ag Gateway annual meeting that's coming up, and we want a little preview of that. And I know there's a lot of different parts for this conference, but start out first of all, where are we going to be? What is it that brought us there? And then we'll kind of talk about what sets this annual meeting of yours apart.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. So Ag Gateway will be meeting at the Downright Austin Hotel in Austin, Texas from the 11th, 12th, and 13th of November. This is our annual meeting as an organization, and we do a couple of different things. Number one, we recognize the hard work and the successes that our volunteers have achieved over the course of the past year. Number two, we spend a lot of time networking and helping those volunteers and others build and extend professional networks. And then three, we do the work of the organization. A lot of conferences at their annual meeting, it really is just that. Recognize what's going on. Maybe there's an educational track, but we actually have, as part of our conference track, working group meetings, meetups for industry segments and interest groups. All of those breakout opportunities to identify new work, proceed on the work that's already on the docket, and then finalize and publish resources for the members in the industry.
So there are kind of like different tracks, if you will, with things like education and working groups. What is it that you start out with before I know we get to a point there with an opening general session?
So Monday morning, we have a couple of different tracks that are going on. The first that I want to highlight is for a student group. We have a program that's been with Ag Gateway for at least the last 10 years, if not longer, called Gateway to Ag Careers. And that brings in highly motivated, highly talented young people, undergraduates, and in some cases graduate students from universities across North America. And we've had interest from participants as far away as Bulgaria to be part of the program. But it's sponsored by an Ag CIO roundtable, and it brings, like I said, these highly motivated young people together to do a couple of things. It helps them build their own professional networks as they get started out, but it also allows the industry volunteers and members who are participating to get to know a little bit more about what's going on in agriculture programs in universities today. What are the things that these young people are interested in studying? What are some of the things that they're doing? And so Monday morning, we'll be integrating that cohort of 10 students into the conference itself. We also have a couple of working groups that will be meeting to dive into and continue work on weather data API. That's working to standardize some of the data that's necessary for exchanging weather and climate information between systems and organizations. And then we'll follow that with the MODIS working group. MODIS is a laboratory data standard really around soil testing. And there are a couple of different formats for that that will be discussed and worked on in that initial working group. We also have time for our member companies who are working to get their systems connected in some way to sit down with each other and kind of talk through challenges, opportunities, build that development schedule out, or just talk through how is the relationship going? And we call those quick connect meetings. Other associations may call that a doing business with meeting, but it's something that member companies can schedule through our member services team, reserve that space and time for the conversation, and know that they've got somebody there, manufacturer to distributor to retailer, whomever, to really talk through. And then we get into the meat of the conference. Like you said, our opening general session will be Monday afternoon, kicks off at 1 o'clock Central Time. We'll talk a little bit about the progress the organization has made in 2024 and put that into the context of fourth year of our 5-year strategic plan. And then we've got a really great panel discussion that's going to be facilitated by Jeremy Wilson. He's our Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer. And this is really all around data gathering for environmental reporting. We have a number of programs that are out there, whether it's climate related or carbon sequestration or climate smart commodities, all of these things that are being driven by and supported by data. And Jeremy's collected a really great selection of folks to talk about what's the reality on the ground. How is that actually working? What's the data that's being collected? What's working? What's successful? And where are there still opportunities to improve? We've got folks from the retail space as well as a representative of an equipment company, but he's got kind of a global sustainability focus. So he brings a slightly different tweak to the data question there. We think this is going to be a great panel, and we think that that's going to drive a lot of the conversations going into the rest of the week.
This is the AgNet News Hour. We'll continue with Chuck Zimmerman right after this. This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. Let's talk about LEP. What are the key benefits of your products for farmers in the Western Zone?
So Live Earth Products, we mine and manufacture a ingredient called humate. Now, humate is rich in organic acids called humic acid and fulvic acid. Now, those are common components in your soil organic matter. And here in the Western United States, unlike those places around the Mississippi going east, actually have very low organic matter. Now, your organic matter is key think of it as the pantry in the soil. So it's key to water retention, nutrient retention, nutrient cycling, microbial activity, those kind of things. So anything that's going to impact the increase in soil organic matter will also impact things like water holding capacity and nutrient holding capacity, which is a big deal here in the West when water is not as abundant as it is in the east side of the United States.
Now, what about nitrate? I know nitrate can be a problem in some soils. So how do LEP products help reduce the nitrate problem on saturated soils?
So Live Earth Products is not unique in how we affect nitrogen, but any organic matter will help retain nitrogen. So typically, the mechanisms that we use are blending the nitrogen with the humate. So what happens is the nitrogen will attach to the humic acid, and you will see less of the processes that degrade or volatilize nitrogen. So nitrogen will either convert to a gas or it'll be converted by microbes into a nitrate and leach to the soil. So the longer you have that product is not being volatilized or converted, the longer opportunity for that nutrient to be used by the plant. We have university testing that has shown that when you blend these organic acids with the nutrient, you give that plant a longer opportunity to use that nutrient before it's lost, volatilized, or converted.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
We continue now with Chuck Zimmerman.
Well, it might be a good time before we go further on this schedule for folks that maybe just don't fully understand that with Ag Gateway, there is a lot of technology-based terms that are what you guys are working with, like AGES, for example, and what does that mean? And, But, when you mention the panel and environmental reporting, no, we're not talking about the media, per se. So, but what's the purpose of Ag Gateway and what's your overriding goal?
So Ag Gateway is a consortium of like-minded companies that are all interested in the efficient generation, exchange, and use of data in agriculture. And it doesn't matter if you are a multinational seed and chemical manufacturer, down through an ag retailer, an equipment manufacturer, one of the OEMs who's putting sensors and cameras and smart sprayers and things like that on tractors and implements. All of those folks are interested in generating, exchanging data for different business purposes. And Ag Gateway members recognize that there's a need to do that efficiently and effectively. And that the best way to do that, so that they're not building one-off implementations over and over again, is to do that in agreed upon standards. And so Ag Gateway provides the forum for companies to come together, agree on the problem, the business problem first that they want to solve, and then tackle it with IT or data specific standards, whether that's a standard process, what we call a business message, right? The payload that's being exchanged, or in some cases, stepping back even from the payload and just describing the metadata that goes along with that message payload. How do I understand the information that's coming through? So I sometimes hear folks say, where's the easy button for data interoperability in agriculture? And unfortunately, right now, there's really not an easy button. But what Ag Gateway members are working on is that foundational layer of technology and vocabulary to enable an easy button in the future. There's a lot of work going on. It's really exciting. And our members are pushing towards a future when data flows like water does in the US today, right? You turn on your tap, you don't worry about where the water has come from, you don't worry about the quality of the water. You just know that you're going to use it for something. I'm going to wash the car, I'm going to wash my clothes, I'm going to cook dinner, I'm going to wash my face, I'm going to drink it, right? At some point, if we're successful in building the resources and relationships necessary, then data in agriculture is going to move like that. And it doesn't matter whether you're tracking your inventory at a retail location or you're loading a file into your planter to know exactly what seed is going in exactly what part of your ground. That's just going to happen. And you're going to be able to do your business and not worry about, does this format match my back-end system, or can I import this electronically, or do I have to save it to a flash drive? It'll be like water. And that's what we're all about.
This is the AgNet News Hour. We continue with this conversation right after this.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. We continue now with Chuck Zimmerman and the preview of the Ag Gateway Annual Conference.
I like the idea of an easy button, and maybe one that can do all kinds of different things, actually. But
yeah,
but as we
it's an easy dial.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. So as we go a little further into the meeting, then there are some very specific working groups and things that are being worked on. Any you might want to highlight there?
Yeah, one of the big ones for our supply chain members is on the Entity ID working group. And this ties to a resource that we call AGIS, the Ag Industry Identification System. AGIS hosts a directory of businesses, locations, products, and things like that that are all enumerated with a unique identifier, so that whether it's manufacturer A talking to distributor B or manufacturer X talking to distributor B, they all agree that these locations, businesses, and so forth mean the same thing using a unique identifier. And AGIS, in one form or another, has been around for longer than I've been in the industry, and this will be 29 years for me. And a lot of the rules for how different pieces of information in that resource are enumerated, who's allowed to enumerate something, how do we verify that a retailer is really a retailer at this address, that kind of thing. Those rules have been around as long as I have. So this is an opportunity for those folks who are interested in supply chain efficiency to sit down and say, okay, how are we doing business today? And how do we need to evolve these rules so that the unique identifiers that we're passing through are still meaningful? How do we have that value out of the resource? And that group's been working pretty diligently since June to develop some process documentation that we'll go over at the conference. And then we're going to start really diving into some of those topics around what do we need for verification purposes? What does it really mean to be a business entity in agriculture? And how can we ensure that we don't have duplicate identifiers or identifiers that appear to be duplicated within the resource? And how can we leverage this for other resources elsewhere? So that's one that has a lot of interest right now, and I think we're going to see a lot of interest in at the conference. On the field operations side and extending a little bit further, there are a couple that I would call out. The ADAPT working group is really around Ag Gateway's Ag Data Application Programming Toolkit. It's been around since 2016 in some form or fashion, maybe a little before then. But the work that Ag Gateway has been doing over the course of the last year is to take what is essentially, like I said, a toolkit, a data model, and some code that allows equipment manufacturers and those interested in equipment data to work from OEM formats and translate that into a common format that they can then consume. Kind of separate that programming application notion of ADAPT to a file format specific standard. Version 1 of ADAPT standard was released shortly after our mid-year meeting in June. And this work is going to continue to drive through, okay, where are we? What does the adoption look like moving forward? How do these two resources relate to each other? For those who want to go down the ADAPT toolkit path, what does that look like? For those who are interested in ADAPT standard, what does that look like? So that's definitely one. And then two others that I think are going to be really interesting are a working group on data ethics. And right now we're kind of thinking of that as a panel as well. And then finally, a review of some international work that's going on. The International Organization for Standardization has a new technical committee on data-driven agriculture. And many Ag Gateway members are participating in that. Many others are just interested in what's going on. And so we'll have about an hour's worth of update on that topic to share. And that's aside from all of the education and meetups and presentations from the students that we have going on.
And committees, and that's going to include the next general session too on day 2.
We're continuing that discussion of environmental reporting and extending it into sustainability data, especially around what other industries and other segments are doing in that space, and how can we as agriculture stakeholders learn from the things that have gone well and the things that they're continuing to struggle with. We've got a great presenter in Andrew Selk, who's a partner with Kulkarni in their agriculture and food practice, and we're really excited to have him there to talk to our membership.
This is the AgNet News Hour. We will continue with the conclusion of this conversation right after this.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Chuck Zimmerman once again.
Well, besides these sessions and meetings, which in large part are a form of networking, you also do have some time for everybody to kind of get together and network and relax a little bit too.
Absolutely. It wouldn't be an ag conference without networking opportunities. And we do have breaks during the day. It's not a full agenda of running from meeting room to meeting room. We've got lots of opportunities for half-hour breaks and lunches either on your own, or Wednesday we have a sponsored networking lunch that will uh, help us close out the week in high fashion. And then Monday and Tuesday evening, we have sponsored networking receptions for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it gives attendees an opportunity to catch up, to reconnect since the last time they've seen each other. And like I said, to allow those companies that work together to make plans for further conversation over dinner, maybe, or for folks who have never met each other in person to go out and start building those and extending those professional networks.
So this meeting is also one at which, say it's the working groups or what have you, but where some decisions get made, which then can be, I guess, what gives you the plan for the next year then.
Most of the planning for 2025 at a high level from that kind of architectural level has been completed, and we'll be sharing a little bit of that with the members in the general session on day one. Right? What is the work plan for 2025 look like? But you're absolutely right. As an organization that's driven by the needs of our members and what they're interested in participating in, those industry meetups or those interest meetups generate ideas that ultimately turn into a working group, right? The entity ID working group, entity rules working group came from members saying, hey, what's working today or what's in place today isn't working for us. And we still find value in the notion of an industry standard. Let's make sure that it's something that really does work for us. The working group to extend some of the image metadata, the PICS working group, same thing. Stakeholders came to Ag Gateway and said, we need a place to have this conversation. And that's what those meetups are all about. The board of directors will be meeting on Monday morning and Monday afternoon to start or continue the process of ideating on our next 5-year strategic plan. So even though we're heading into the last year of our current plan, we need to move forward. We need to lay the course for Ag Gateway to continue forward in 2026 to 2030. So the board of directors is going to be working through some output that has been done virtually, really diving into what are the opportunities for the organization, where are those areas where we see not necessarily threats, but certainly challenges that we either want to overcome, we want to avoid, or we need to retool the organization so that it's not a challenge for us. Looking forward to doing that with the board. They've been a great group to work with this past year. We'll be saying farewell to Scott Sharbo, who's our current board chair, and we look forward to welcoming Karen Order with Winfield Land O'Lakes as our incoming board chair for 2025.
Well, I'm looking forward to the meeting because we've been to this a couple of years now, and it's fascinating. And to see just even in a couple of years how much more Ag Gateway is doing, especially like on the international level.
Yeah, we'll have some representatives from our Latin America region, primarily Brazil, but not exclusively Brazil, with us. We have, I believe, a couple of representatives from our Europe region. They're each having their own regional year-end meetings here at the same time, so that the schedule just didn't quite align for everybody to get together. But the whole notion of of the work that we do is that what's applicable in one region should apply across the globe. And we're leveraging the expertise that our members in industry have and academia have and other segments have to build best of breed standards and resources. So what we may look at for Europe for the coming year is really around some of the digital sustainability reporting requirements that they have. A lot of what we see in the United States starts in Europe, and then it goes to California, and then it goes elsewhere, right? So what can we learn? How can we help influence the work that's going on there? And what do we see in terms of data that's being identified as required for some of those programs? Those are the kinds of conversations that they're having down in Brazil. They're really focused on carbon data, climate data, and just connectivity in general. It's a huge space. If your listeners haven't been there, it's just amazingly diverse in terms of agriculture. But we think we've got it bad in the United States with connectivity. Brazil is orders of magnitude larger and orders of magnitude more challenging for that. So that's really what they're focused on, and they're learning from us in North America. We're learning from some of the practices that they have. It's really great, and look forward to seeing our folks continue to work together to build those best of breed resources.
All right, Brent, then how about a closing remark as we look forward to the conference coming up in Austin shortly.
We look forward to welcoming all comers to Ag Gateway's annual meeting, November 11th through the 13th in Austin, Texas. If it's your first meeting, it's going to be overwhelming, but you're going to come out just amazed at the breadth of technology and interoperability, and most important, the willingness of the industry to work together.
This is the AgNet News Hour. We have this week's almond update when we get back. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
It's time for this week's almond update. The Almond Board of California provided its monthly update on market access issues this week. The Almond Board's Taylor Hillman has the updates.
Highlights from November's Global Update from the Global Technical and Regulatory Affairs team at the Almond Board of California in today's Almond Byte. ABC has full schedule of EU meetings. ABC staff members Gabrielle Ludwig, Elena Hemmler, and Abhi Kulkarni recently attended the annual FRUCOM meetings in Brussels, Belgium. The meeting provides an opportunity to meet with key stakeholders from European trade, Commission staff, and other associations for discussions concerning current and future regulatory and trade issues that might impact the almond industry. While in Europe, Abhi Kulkarni met with the staff of NZV, which is the Dutch Nuts and Dried Fruit Association, regarding questions pertaining to almond quality and recent difficulties in moving shipments from Spain to the Netherlands for reprocessing. The trip also provided an opportunity to meet with USDA Foreign Agricultural Service staff in Rome, as well as the staff at the Italian Ministry of Health. Following last year's multiple shipment rejections for mold, the Italian meetings provided an opportunity to re-establish the positive relationship between ABC and the ministry. The robustness of the Pre-Export Check Program, also known as PEC, the PEC webinars, and industry training, along with handler audits performed each year, were discussed to some detail, building the confidence in the PEC program. Kulkarni also highlighted the collaborative relationship between the California almond industry and the Italian nut processing sector, which counts on the reliable supply of California almonds for its value-added processing. For more information, you can contact Abhi Kulkarni at the Almond Board of California. Post-U.S. election update. While the election was held on November 5th, votes are still being counted, including many yet to be counted across California's Central Valley. Republicans won a number of election races, most notably at the top of the ticket, where former President Donald J. Trump is set to retake the office. Additionally, Republicans appear poised to gain control of the Senate by at least a 2-vote majority. While control of the House of Representatives has yet to be determined, as of the time of this recording, it appears that whichever party gains control will do so by a thin margin. Republicans currently have 213 seats called in their favor, while Democrats have 202 races decided in their favor. 218 seats are required to hold the majority in the House. Among the races which have yet to be called are a number of Central Valley representatives, including California District 9, which is currently held by Representative Josh Hader, a Democrat, California District 13, currently held by Representative John Duarte, a Republican, California District 22, currently held by Representative David Valadao, a Republican, and California District 21, currently held by Representative Jim Costa, a Democrat. All of these incumbents in those races currently hold a lead with anywhere between 51 to 57% of the votes counted. Lawmakers from both House and Senate are expected to be sworn in on January 3rd of 2025. It is anticipated that President-elect Trump's transition team will also be moving very quickly to identify and appoint cabinet positions and key advisors. For more information on any of the post-U.S. elections, you can contact Brock Densel at the Almond Board of California. Country of origin labeling for the European Union comes into force in January. Starting January 1st of 2025, the European Union will mandate the indication of the country of origin on labels of vegetables, fruits, and nuts, including cut fresh produce. This obligation will be the point-of-sale retail packaging and online sales to consumers. For products such as California almonds, which are typically shipped in bulk, the country of origin information can be provided by the accompanying shipment documents or clearly affixed in the shipping containers. Typically, most bulk cartons of California almonds already include the country of origin information. And that's your highlights from November's Global Update from the Global Technical and Regulatory Affairs team at the Almond Board of California in today's Almond Byte.
For more information on market access and regulation issues for the almond industry, visit almonds.com and listen and subscribe to ABC's podcast channel. Just search Almond Journey wherever you get your podcasts. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halverson.
Wrapping up the day today with some agriculture news. There were some notable events and presentations associated with this year's World Food Prize Laureate Ceremony and Norman Borlaug International Dialogue on Food Security. Rod Bain reports.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2024 World Food Prize Laureate Award celebration.
World Food Prize Foundation President Terry Branstad with greetings from the Iowa Capitol building in Des Moines, home for the annual laureate presentation ceremony. This year's recipients of the Nobel Prize for Agriculture were presented their honor recently for their work developing global plant gene banks. Jeffrey Houghton of the United Kingdom and Canada, and Carrie Fowler of the United States.
I got to realize the value of genetic diversity. I was starting a breeding program from scratch. You cannot breed unless you have genetic diversity. You need to have different traits that you can bring across together to select new varieties.
Later in life, when I encountered crop diversity and realized how important that was to the future of the world and food security, it didn't seem out of place to somehow try to create a global system for conserving it in perpetuity.
The laureates participated in various sessions during the coinciding Norman Borlaug International Dialogue. The theme of the 2024 edition was Seeds of Opportunity, Bridging Generations and Cultivating Diplomacy. Among the areas of focus during the event, increasing food security in the African continent. Several sessions discussed aspects of these efforts, including one featuring Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack and former United Nations Ambassador Andrew Young.
1/2 of the increased population in the world over the course of the next several decades. It's going to come from the African continent.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Happy New Year! For most Americans, New Year's is weeks away, but for international traders in food and agricultural products, New Year's was weeks ago. And we now have the complete ag export numbers for fiscal year 2024, which ended September 30th. Total export sales, $174.4 billion, a bit better than some had predicted, about $1 billion better. But USDA economist Bart Kenner says export values were still down 2% from the year before.
We saw a lot of competition globally for our bulk products and decreasing unit values for those products. And so while we exported quite a bit, we received less money for those exports. And so we saw values go down.
Especially for so-called bulk commodities, which account for over 30% of total U.S. agricultural export values. And for those products, it was not a great export year.
Major bulk products for fiscal year 24 were $54 billion, down 14% from the previous year.
Export values were up slightly for corn, but down substantially for wheat, soybeans, and cotton. Helping, however, to make up for those losses were some very nice increases in sales of U.S. high-value products.
Some of the increased categories we see, red meats and red meat products were up 4% at $20.2 billion. Fruit products were up 11% over last year at $6.3 billion. And vegetable products were up 8% over last year at $8.6 billion.
Exports of nut products and ethanol were up by almost 20%. Meanwhile, imports of foreign ag products coming into the U.S. grew by 6%, creating an ag trade deficit of almost $32 billion. So that was 2024. And for 2025, Bart Kenner says some analysts are already predicting
more of the same.
But we'll see what USDA analysts think when they release their forecast in just a few weeks, Thanksgiving week. Gary Crawford reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
While the election is now behind us, the future of the long-awaited Farm Bill remains in question. Farmers and ranchers have been waiting for the reauthorization of the bill for more than a year, since the last bill expired in September of 2023. While there is a ready, bipartisan-supported version released by House Agriculture Committee Chair Glenn G.T. Thompson, it remains unknown if it will pass before the new Congress begins. Ethan Lane, Vice President of Government Affairs for the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, says the proposed bill is strong.
Look, G.T. Thompson has done a phenomenal job. He has crafted a really popular farm bill that was voted out of the House Ag Committee on a bipartisan basis. There's a good bill out there. It's ready to move. The farming community, the ranching community likes it. We just need to move the bill.
Whether the current political landscape either helps or hinders the Farm Bill's progression remains to be seen. With the Senate expected to shift under the new Republican voices and the House potentially remaining under Republican control, the bill stands a good chance of moving forward quickly in the new Congress. However, there's also the risk that competing legislative priorities in the new administration could delay it. And Lane points out, Democrats may want to push the bill through now to get a voice in before the new Congress takes over.
So whether that happens in lame duck because we have a newly open to compromise Democratic conference up on Capitol Hill that's trying to figure out a way to lock in something before the start of the next Congress, or whether that's something that's taken up quickly in the new Congress, this isn't something that should need to be relitigated. There's a popular bill out there crafted by an Ag Committee chairman that has done more legwork than any chairman we've ever seen in talking to producers and figuring out how to thread that needle. The bill is there. It's just time to move it, whether that's in lame duck or early in the new administration. We're going to be asking for that and pushing for it.
That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Also look for Sabrina Halverson on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast by searching for AgNet West on your podcast app. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.